Revilla, Reyes, Rivera, Robes, Rodriguez, Roman, Romero, Romualdez, Ferdinand Martin, Romualdez Yeda Marie, Romualdo, Romulo, Roque, Sakdalan, Sagarbaria, Sakaluran, Salceda, Salimbangon, Salo, Sanchez, Sangkopan, Santos Recto, Sarmiento, Saulog, Saveliano, Siao, Silverio, Singson, Singson Mihan, Sinsuat, Swansing Estrelita, Swansing Horacio, Suarez Aleta, Suarez David, Suntay, C. Alvarado, Taduran, Talyado, Tambunting, Tan Alisa Sheena, Tan Angelina Helen, Tan Samier, Tan Sharian, Tan Sherney, Tejada, Teves Arnulfo, Teves Jose, Tiangco, Tolentino, Torres Gomez, Tulfo, Tupas, Tutor, T. Alan, T. Diego, Umali Alfonso, Umali Maria Victoria, Unabia, Ungab, Uy Juliet, Uy Rolando Clarex, Valeriano, Valmayor, Vargas, Vargas Alfonso, Velasco, Veloso, Vergara, Villa, Villafuerte, Villanueva, Eduardo Brother Eddie, Villanueva Noel, Villar, Villarasa Suarez, Villarica, Violago, Yap Eric, Yap Victor, Yu, Zamora Ronaldo, Zamora Waikurat, Zarate, Zubiri. Mr. Speaker, the roll call shows that 301 members responded to the call.
With 301 members in attendance, 301? With 301 members in attendance, which includes 89 members physically present and 212 who are participating now via telecommunications and or other online technologies like Zoom and Facebook, the Chair declares the presence of a quorum. Majority Leader. Is there any objection? The Chair hears none. The motion is approved. The Secretary General is directed to read Proclamation number 1027. Secretary General.
Proclamation number 1027, calling the Congress of the Philippines to a special session. Pursuant to the powers vested in me under Section 15, Article 6 of the Constitution, I, Rodrigo Roa Duterte, President of the Philippines, do hereby call the Congress of the Philippines to a special session on 13 October 2020 to 16 October 2020 in order to resume the congressional deliberations on the proposed 2021 national budget and to avoid any further delays on the prompt passage thereof, in accordance with the Constitution and applicable laws, rules, and regulations. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the Republic of the Philippines to be affixed. Done in the city of Manila, this 9th day of October, in the year of our Lord, 2020. Signed, Rodrigo Roa Duterte, by the President, Salvador Medialdea, Executive Secretary.
Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we perform a reference of business. Would the Secretary General be directed to read the title of bills and resolutions on first reading, as well as communications and committee reports? So moved, Mr. Speaker.
Is there any objection? The chair hears none. The motion is approved. Secretary General is directed to read the title of bills, resolutions, and messages on first reading for referral to appropriate committees.
Reference of business resolutions. House Resolution number 1288 entitled, Resolution informing the Senate of the Philippines that the House of Representatives has convened its second special session and has entered upon the exercise of its functions, by Representatives Romualdez, Ferdinand, and Abante.
To the Committee on Rules.
House Resolution number 1289 entitled, Resolution informing the President of the Philippines that the House of Representatives has convened its second special session and has entered upon the exercise of its functions, by Representatives Romualdez, Ferdinand, and Abante.
To the Committee on Rules.
Pagkatapos niya. Message from the President. Speaker Alan Peter S. Cayetano, Speaker of the House, House of Representatives, Batasan Hills, Quezon City, dated 9 October 2020. Mr. Speaker, pursuant to the provisions of Article 6, Section 26(2) of the 1987 Constitution, I hereby certify to the necessity of the immediate enactment of House Bill number 7727 entitled, An Act Appropriating Funds for the Operation of the Government of the Republic of the Philippines from January 1 to December 31, 2021 and for other purposes, in order to address the need to maintain continuous government operations following the end of the current fiscal year, strengthen efforts to respond more effectively to the COVID-19 pandemic, and support initiatives towards national economic recovery. Best regards, very truly yours, signed by the President Rodrigo Roa Duterte.
To the Committee on Rules. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, Your Honor,
Majority Leader.
I move that session be suspended.
Session suspended.
future. Let's join him in front of the rostrum.
wish to be seated and do not have tables to please occupy the first gallery seats. And may we request other staff to please occupy the second gallery. This is to observe in observance of proper social distancing. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we direct the Secretary General to read the title and text of Resolution number 1288. So move, Mr. Speaker.
Is there any objection? Hearing none, motion is approved. The Secretary General is now directed to read the title of the resolution.
House Resolution 1288, resolution informing the Senate of the Philippines that the House of Representatives has convened its second special session and has entered upon its exercise of its functions.
Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we consider House Resolution number 1289 and direct the Secretary General to read the text and title of the same.
Is there any objection? Hearing none, the Secretary General is now directed to read the title of the bill.
House Resolution 1289, resolution informing the President of the Philippines that the House of Representatives has convened its second special session and has entered upon the exercise of its functions.
Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, we are in receipt of a message from the President certifying the necessity of the immediate approval of House Bill number 7727. I move that the Secretary General be directed to read said message. So move, Mr. Speaker.
Is there any objection? Hearing none, the Secretary General is directed to read the title of the measure.
House Bill 7727, an act appropriating funds for the operation of the government of the Republic of the Philippines from January 1 to December 31, 2021, and for other purposes. Mr. Speaker, pursuant to the provisions of Article 6, Section 26, second paragraph of the 1987 Constitution, I hereby certify to the necessity of the immediate enactment of House Bill number 7727 in order to address the need to maintain continuous government operations following the end of the current fiscal year, strengthening efforts to respond more effectively to the COVID-19 pandemic and to support the initiatives toward national economic recovery. Best regards, very truly yours, the President, Rodrigo Roa Duterte.
Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move to reconsider the approval on second reading of House Bill number 7727.
Is there any objection? Hearing none, motion is approved. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move to reconsider the termination of the period of amendments of House Bill number 7727.
Is there any objection? Hearing none, the there is a motion to reconsider the termination of the period of amendments of House Bill number 7727. Those who are in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And those who are against, please say nay.
Nay.
House Bill number 7727 is now approved on second reading. Majority Leader.
So, Mr. Speaker, just to clarify, earlier we reconsidered the approval on second reading of House Bill number 7727. The A's had it with no objection. Now, we just reconsidered the termination of the period of amendments of House Bill 7727. With no objection, the Ayes have it. And now, Mr. Speaker, I move to reconsider the termination of the period of sponsorship and debate of House Bill 7727. So move, Mr. Speaker.
There is a motion to reconsider the termination of the period of sponsorship and debate of House number 7727. Those who are in favor of the motion, please say aye. And those who are against, please say nay. The ayes have it. The termination of the period of sponsorship and debate of House Bill number 7727 is hereby reconsidered. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we consider on second reading House Bill number 7727. as contained in Committee Report number 528, and may we direct the Secretary General to read the title of the measure.
Is there any objection? The chair is none. The motion is approved. The Secretary General is now directed to read the title of the bill of the House Bill number 7727.
House Bill number 7727, an act appropriating funds for the operation of the Government of the Republic of the Philippines from January 1 to December 31, 2021, and for other purposes.
Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, our parliamentary status is that we are in the period of sponsorship and debate. With that, Mr. Speaker, I move to suspend session for a few minutes.
Session suspended.
Speaker,
Session is resumed. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, earlier two resolutions were considered by the House. I move for their adoption. So move, Mr. Speaker.
Is there any objection? Hearing none, motion is approved. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move for a few minutes suspension.
Session suspended.
The Majority Floor Leader. Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the majority, I move to nominate and elect the Honorable Paulo Duterte, Chairman of the Committee on Accounts. So moved, Mr. Speaker.
Is there any objection? There being none, motion is approved. The Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Speaker, our parliamentary status is that we are in the period of sponsorship and debate regarding House Bill 7727, the national budget. I move that we consider the proposed budget of the Civil Service Commission, and for this purpose, recognize its sponsor, the gentleman from the 2nd District of Bataan, the Honorable Joet Garcia. So move, Mr. Speaker.
Is there any objection? The chair hears none. Motion is hereby approved. The gentleman from the 2nd District of Bataan is hereby recognized. Please proceed.
Good afternoon, Mr. Speaker. I have the honor of sponsoring the budget of the Civil Service Commission. The CSC has a total of 1.791 billion in appropriations for fiscal year 2021. The allocation to the agency is broken down as follows: 1.428 billion for personal services, 346 million for maintenance and other operating expenditure, 9,000 for financial expenses, 16.4 billion for capital outlay. 16.4 million for capital outlay. The CSC, Mr. Speaker, is mandated to formulate policies and regulations for the administration, maintenance and implementation of position classification and compensation, and set standards for the establishment, allocation, and reallocation of pay scales, classes, and position. I would like to recognize, Mr. Speaker, the CSC officials who are here in this budget hearing. Chairperson Alicia De La Rosa Bala, Assistant Commissioner Ariel Ronquillo, Director 4 Helen Grace T. Ramos, as well as the other members of the CSC family. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Civil Service Commission family, headed by Chairperson Bala, welcome to the House of Representatives. Welcome to the House of Representatives. Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Speaker, for his chance to interpellate the esteemed sponsor, I move to recognize the esteemed gentleman from the party list Bayan Muna, the Honorable Ferdinand Gaite. So move, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Gentleman from Bayan Muna party list is hereby recognized. Please proceed.
legislators sa House of Representatives. Marami po akong mga ilang tanong sa Civil Service Commission. Pahintulutan ba ng ating kagalang-galang sponsor na makapag-clarify sa mga policies ng CSC, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Sponsor?
It will be an honor, Mr. Speaker.
Maraming salamat po. Ang isa sa mga concern ng tinatawag ito ay ang usapin hinggil sa napipintong pagpapatupad, pag-implement ng CSC, Civil Service Commission, Commission on Audit, Department of Budget and Management, Joint Circular Number 1, Series of 2018. Ito po initially nilabas noong 2017 at inimendahan itong 2018 sa parehong number. Na essentially, come January 1, 2021, few months away, na inuutos ng mga kontraktual ay i-outsource na sa pamamagitan ng institutional contract of service. Ibig sabihin, idadaan na sa service contractor or service agency. Noong unang inilabas ang Joint Circular Number 1 noong 2017, tinutulan ito ng mga kawani. Kaya naman inilabas yung Joint Circular Number 1 noong 2018 na pareho rin alaman bagamat in-extend lang hanggang 2020. Ang sinasabing direct hiring of government agencies of job orders and contract service. We are very concerned dahil ngayon, panahon ng pandemya, lumalaki ang pangangailangan ng government services. Sa tingin pa ng sponsor, Mr. Chair, tama ba at reasonable itong Joint Circular Number 1 na kabaligtaran sa utos ni Pangulong Duterte na dapat itigil ng i-end ang endo, ipatigil ang contractualization. And yet, the government is the main violator of this insidious policy of hiring government workers not as regular employees but as job orders and contract service na walang kasigurahan sa trabaho, Mr. Chair. So ano ho ba? Ano ho ba tingin ng ating kagalang-galang na sponsor dito sa inilabas ng pangunahin ng CSC kasama ang DBM at ang Commission on Audit, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Sponsor?
Sa nabanggit po ni Congressman Gaiten na joint circular, gusto ko lang po ipaalam na hindi na po kasama ang Civil Service Commission sa joint circular na ito. Pero ang alam po ng inyong lingkod ng kinatawan na to, na ito po ay they're contemplating to extend the validity of contract of service and job order workers, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Chair, do we have a firm commitment that this will be, ang position po, gusto ko lang clarify, no? Ang position po ng mga magagawa ay maging regular. Hindi, well, not just simply an extension of being job orders or contract service. Na alam naman natin, sa panahon nga ng pandemya, marami sa kanila ang nalagay sa panganib dahil as we all know, sila ang pinakamadaling i-let go. Kasi nga po, walang kasiguruhan sa trabaho. Do we have Mr. Sponsor, Mr. Speaker, it was mentioned that they are now contemplating on extending the deadline. Ano po ba ang firm commitment dito? Sigurado po ba to o tulad nga na banggit ko, ang panawagan nga ng mga empleyado, sa halip na i-continue pa yung policy na ito, dapat bawiin, dapat i-rescind. Dahil ito ay talagang direktang paglabag sa kasigurahan sa trabaho sa gobyerno. And this has been thoroughly discussed here in Congress. We have bills filed for workers in the public sector as well as the private sector. And yet, especially in this time of pandemic, we cannot afford. Hindi pwedeng ma-afford na manggagawa na mawalan siya ng trabaho ngayon. At bilang job order, contract service, sila na nga yung sinasabing pinaka-vulnerable. Sila yung pinaka-precarious ang katangian ng trabaho. Ano ho bang commitment na sa usapin na to? Sa minimum ay extend, sa maximum panawagan ng mga manggagawa at kawani ay ito ay ipatigil na sa kabuuan, Mr. Sponsor, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Speaker, bukas po ang civil service sa suggestion ng ating pong mga contract of service at job order workers ay ma-regularize. Ngunit sa tingin po ng civil service ay may kinakailangan pong batas upang ito po ay maisagawa. So as long as ang ating pong mga contract of service at job order workers ay qualified, nandyan po yung kanilang competency at sumusunod sa proseso para po ma-regularize, wala pong sang-ayon po ang civil service para po gawin yan. Pero katulad po ng aking nabanggit kanina, kinakailangan po meron tayong implementing law upang ito po ay maisagawa.
Salamat, Mr. Sponsor. Salamat, Mr. Speaker. At ito ay napakahalaga, no, sa panahon ngayon. And just to expound on the extent nitong sinasabi nating contractualization sa manggagawa, ayon mismo sa datos ng Civil Service Commission sa kanilang IGHR o Inventory of Government Human Resources, there are about, as of August 31, 2020, there are 653,816 government employees who are considered job orders of contract service. I would like to repeat that. 653,816. On top of that, ito po yung job orders at contract service who unfortunately are not even called employees of the government because they have no employee-employer relationship. O, sa kabilang bahagi, meron pa po tayong tinatawag na casuals at contractuals. Ang pagkakaiba nila, ito daw ay may employee-employer relationship. Pero ang parehong kalagayan, wala pa rin silang kasiguruhan sa trabaho. And they number 127,047 personnel as of August 31. So cumulatively, we have more than 700, almost 800,000, Mr. Chair. Na nalalapit na yung date na January 1, 2021, ay matatapos na itong muling pinangangambahan ng maraming kawani sa loob ng pamahalaan. So ang nais na marinig ng mga kawani sa kasalukuyan, sa minimum nga ay ito ay masuspinde at sa maximum ay bawiin. At sa halip na ipatupad ito sa nalalapit na datos, madaliin ang panukalang batas at nabanggit nyo na po na merong hinahantay yung batas. Matanong ko po, Mr. Sponsor, Mr. Speaker, sumasang-ayon ba na magkaroon na po tayo sa kagyat ng panukalang ng pag-aproba ng batas na naglalayong ang mga kawaning walang kasiguruhan sa trabaho ngayon, bunga na nga rin ng sinasabing kanilang experience sa trabaho. Nabanggit ko po kasi kanina kung wala silang qualifications, no? And I would believe otherwise kasi hindi sila ma-hire as job orders of contract or contract of service kung wala silang minimum na qualifications na nire-require ng trabaho ng gobyerno. Kahit sa pinakamaliit na uri ng trabaho hanggang sa pinakamataas. So Mr. Chair, Mr. Sponsor, sumasang-ayon ba ang ating galang-galang na sponsor na sa kagyat sa pinakamadaling panahon ay maaprubahan ang batas nito para yung 800,000 na kawani sa loob ng pamahalaan ay makinabang na eventually ng kanilang kasiguruhan sa trabaho, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Sponsor.
Mr. Speaker, yung atin pong napag-uusapan na kung meron pong batas na maipapanukala, kung meron pong panukalang batas na lalabas ho mula dito sa ating mababang kapulungan at pati ho sa Senado, yan po ay makakatulong para ho sa plight ng ating mga contract of service and job order workers. Pero habang yan po ay wala pa, ang suggestion po ng civil service ay yung iba't iba pong mga national government agencies na binanggit po kanina na umaabot po sa 127,000 ang mga COS or JO workers, ang maaari pong suwestyon ay sila ay magbigay, ang mga ahensya, ibigay po sa DBM ang mga posisyon na dapat makreate upang ang mga COS or job order workers na ito ay mabigyan ng pagkakataon upang po ma-regularize. So, nasa kanya-kanya pong ahensya ang paggawa ng paraan upang magsumite sa DBM ng mga proposed creation ng iba't iba pong mga items nang sa ganon ito po ay ma-applyan ng mga competent at mga qualified na COS or job order workers, Mr. Speaker.
Maraming salamat po, Mr. Sponsor. Maraming salamat, Mr. Speaker. At kami po ay matagal nang isinusulong na itong mapagsamantalang patakaran na ito na tulad na pinatutupad sa pribadong sektor, na ipinatutupad din sa pamahalaan ngayon ay dapat matigil na. Mapagsamantala dahil sa ating saligang batas, sa Article 13, Section 3, ay malinaw na dapat ang mga kawani at manggagawa, mapapribado man o maggobyerno, ay kikilalanin ang karapatan nilang sariling mag-organisa, makapasok sa sama-samang negosasyon at collective bargaining and negotiations, at gayon din yung karapatang magsagawa ng mapayapang pagkilos kasama ang karapatang magwelga na naaayon sa batas. So ang panawagan rin po ng mga contractuals ay mga job orders and contract of service ay mabago rin itong panawagan na ito sa pinakamaagang panahon. Nabanggit niyo po kanina, no, Mr. Chair, hinihintay yung panawagan ng yung ating sinasagawang isa sa batas na panukala para protektahan ang ating mga government workers na walang kasiguruhan sa trabaho. Sa bahagi ng CSC, giban po doon sa nilabas nilang circular na sa tingin ko po ay salungat doon sa layunin na maregular ang ating mga kawani. Meron ho ba ibang ginawang hakbang o mga resolusyon ang CSC para yung sinasabing maraming mga manggagawang hindi regular ay mabigyan ng pagkakataon na maging regular. Sa mga nakaraan, meron pong mga policy ang CSC tulad ng testimonials. Yung sinasabing policy na kapag depende sa tagal ng serbisyo, ay maaaring consider sila sa kapalit ng iba pang mga qualification standards. Example, yung eligibility na dati ang ibang certifications tulad sa TESDA at iba pa ay pwede nang kapalit doon sa qualification standards tulad ng civil service examinations na kapalit. Meron ho bang konkretong hakbang? Kasi ang naririnig ko, halip na lumuwag, lalong humihigpit. Ang hirap pumasa doon sa civil service examination. Kaya marami sa ating mga kasamahan ay kumukuha ng iba't ibang paraan para tulad ng testimonials, nung tinatawag ng certifications through other training certificates. Pero hanggang ngayon ay hindi namin nakikita na mas binibigyan ng puwang para ang ating mga government workers na contractors sa job orders ay mag-qualify for these positions that require certain qualification standards, Mr. Chair. Ano ho ba yung mga policy na ginagawa ng CSC patungkol dito, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Sponsor?
Yung nabanggit po ni Congressman Gaiten na special eligibility para po sa TESDA, yan po ay mga existing na mga item at ang ginawa lang po ng CSC dyan ay may qualification standard sapagkat yan po ay mga existing item na. Meron din ho mga na-provide o na-grant na mga special eligibilities, pero ito po ay ayon din sa iba't iba pong mga batas na naipasa, katulad ng honor graduate eligibility, PD 907, Sangguniang Member Eligibility, RO RA 10156, Scientific and Technological Specialist Eligibility, PD 997, Veterans Preference Rating, EO 132, 790, Bar Board Eligibility, RA 1080, Barangay Health Worker Eligibility, RA 7883, Barangay Nutrition Scholar Eligibility, PD 1569, Barangay Official Eligibility, RA 7160, Honor Graduate Eligibility, PD 907.
Salamat po sa information na ito. Sapagkat kahit pa man ay may mga ganito na mga paraan para makakuha ng kapalit na eligibility o substitute eligibility. As a matter of fact, yung Rasul Law provided for those who obtained a temporary appointment ay bibigyan ng eligibility. Bagamat medyo matagal, 7 years ang period. Sa private sector, maka-6 na buwan ka lamang na pagsiservisyo, ay pwede ka nang gawing regular at dapat kang gawing regular. Pero sa gobyerno, meron tayong kasamahan ng mga job orders, contract of service at iba pa na kahit na may problema nga sa eligibility, pero bunga na nga nung mga restrictions, yung sinasabing merit and fitness, yung kailangan dumaan sa competitive examinations tulad ng binibigay ng CSC. Pero merong kapalit, may substitute na provisions. At nabanggit nyo na po kanina, yung mga paraan para magkaroon ng special eligibility. So, ang tanong lang po ni Mr. Chair, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Sponsor, dito sa panawagang ito, sumasang-ayon ba ang CSC na makapagbigay ng special service eligibility rin doon sa mga kawani na matagal nang nagsisilbi sa gobyerno at bunga ng karanasan, yung experience sila sa pagtatrabaho sa gobyerno, ay pwedeng maging kapalit ng nire-require eligibility and other requirements of the for becoming a regular employee of the government, Mr. Sponsor, Mr. Speaker.
Sang-ayon po ang civil service na mabigyan ng special eligibility. Ngunit katulad po ng aking nabanggit kanina, kinakailangan pa rin ho ng batas o ng enabling law upang ito po ay kanila pong maigrant sa mga qualified na mga contract of service at job order workers.
Maraming salamat po, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Sponsor, at yan nga po ang laman ng panawagan ng aming pinanukalang batas na ang laman ay katulad ng nga rin sa pribadong sektor ay bigyan ng kasiguruhan sa trabaho ang mga kawaning ipinattern na rin namin sa labor code na kung magkaroon ng 6 na buwan na tuloy-tuloy na pagserbisyo o cumulative na trabaho sa gobyerno, kung ikaw ay job order, contract of service, contractual, casual, emergency hire, at iba pang katawagan na empleyado, ay dapat gawaran na sila, una, na security of tenure, at ikalawa, yung nabanggit ng eligibility. At ako nagpapasalamat na sinusuportahan ng ating sponsor ang panawagang ito para matigil na ang napaka-exploitative na measure na ito. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Sponsor, patungkol naman, banggit kanina, no, na napakarami pa rin pala na hindi pa napupuno ang posisyon sa gobyerno. Ayon sa CSC, as of September 8, 2020, mahigit 260,000 ang vacant position sa gobyerno, unfilled. Ngunit noong 2018, sinabi ng DBM na mayroong 264,000 vacant authorized positions. Sa makatuwid, maliit lamang ang na-fill up sa daang libong unfilled positions. Ngunit sa staffing pattern ng 2020, nakalagay na mayroon namang 178,000 unfilled authorized positions. Mari ba ipaliwanag bakit may discrepancies po sa datos from 260,000 naging 264,000, ngayon 178,000 na lang ang unfilled authorized positions. Lumiit, Mr. Sponsor, Mr. Speaker. Ano ho ba ang dahilan?
Mr. Speaker, maaari pong pakiulit lang yung huling katanungan.
Ayon sa datos mismo ng CSC, yung staffing summary as of 2021, bumaba ng 178,000 ang unfilled authorized positions. Mali bang maipaliwanag yung discrepancy sa datos na sinasabi ng CSC at nakalagay sa staffing summary? Dati kasi umaabot ng 260,000 ang vacant positions sa gobyerno. Mali bang maipaliwanag anong mga dahilan kung bakit lumiit ang bilang ng unfilled position sa gobyerno? Mr. Sponsor, Mr. Speaker.
Yung una pong bilang na binanggit po ng kinatawan mula po sa Bayan Muna Party List ay yun po yung bilang na nasa record ng Civil Service Commission. Maaari po na yung bilang kung saan nakita ho na malaki ang binaba. Maaari po yan po yung bilang ayon naman ho sa DBM.
Ang ibig sabihin niyo po, nag-iiba lang ang source, therefore merong pagkakaiba o may ibang dahilan? Hindi ho ba baka nangyari, tinanggal na itong mga positions na ito, kaya hindi na siya unfilled, or possibly rin na-fill lang yung position. So hindi ho ba, ang reason lang ay iba ang source, yung isa CSC, yung sa DBM, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Sponsor?
Maaari po, Mr. Speaker, ang dahilan lang yung pinagmulan ng datos na ating pinag-uusapan sapagkat ang CSC, yung kanila pong pag-compute kung ilan po yung mga unfilled position ay naayon po sa mga sinubmit sa kanila ng iba't iba pong mga ahensya.
Salamat po, Mr. Sponsor, Mr. Speaker. Muli, babalik pa rin ako sa bilang ng whether it's 178,000 or 260,000 or 264,000. Malaki pa rin ito. Tama ba? Do you believe that, especially now that we need employment, we had a 17% unemployment rate, bumaba daw to 10%, but still, malaking bilang na yun. We're talking about millions of Filipinos na walang trabaho, walang may uwi na sahod sa kanilang mga pamilya. At yung iba nga ay nakita natin na naglilimos na lang sa lansangan. No? Araw-araw na kung may pagkakataon tayong makalabas sa lansangan, makikita natin yung kalagayan nila. Anong ginagawang konkretong hakbang ng CSC para ma-fill up itong mga positions na ito? Hindi ba dapat gawing mandate ng CSC to ensure that all government agencies have these positions filled up at the soonest possible time? Kailangan ng ating mga mamamayan ng trabaho. Mismo sa gobyerno can provide such jobs. As of now, dapat nga even during the crisis ng Great Depression, gobyerno ang lumilika kahit on a temporary basis ng trabaho. And yet, we have available jobs, but it cannot be filled up for reasons I do not know. So ano ho mga pwedeng hakbang ginagawa ng CSC para mapunuan itong mga positions na ito, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Sponsor?
Sang-ayon po ang CSC at ang kinatawang ito sa mungkahi ng kinatawan ng Bayan Muna Party List para po ma-fill up agad ito pong mga napakaraming vacancy sa ating pong pamahalaan. Sa katunayan, ang CSC po ay nagpa-facilitate ng napakarami pong mga job fair at ngayon pong nasa gitna po tayo ng pandemya ay gumawa rin po sila ng paraan para magkaroon ng online or virtual job fair upang malaman ng ating mga kababayan, lalo na ating mga contract of service at saka JO workers, kung ano po yung mga available na posisyon na maaari po nilang ma-applyan. So ginagawa po yan ng CSC upang makatulong, ngunit mahalaga siguro na malaman o maintindihan din natin na wala pong legal authority ang CSC para i-require ang government agencies para i-fill up yung kanila pong mga existing vacant plantilla positions or items. Ang otoridad na ito ay maaring nasa DBM na makapag-enforce ng mga stringent measures. Ang isa ho dito, Mr. Speaker, ay pwede nilang unfund or abolish yung mga unfilled vacant plantilla positions. Maari kung ito po ay gagawin ng DBM, maari pong mas mabilis na fill-upan ng iba't ibang ahensya ng ating pamalaan yung kanila pong vacant plantilla position nang sa ganon ito po ay hindi mawala at hindi po mawalan ng budget o ng pondo.
Salamat po, Mr. Chair. At tama po naman yung binanggit na ang CSC ay walang mandate, pero ang DBM nga, napanggit ko na po yung mga measures na pwedeng gawin. Pero tingin ko, ang CSC bilang Central Personnel Agency ng gobyerno ay maaaring i-facilitate ito sa mga policies para makatulong dahil nabanggit na nga yung problema ng qualification standards, yung mga stringent na mga measures, yung examinations ng civil service for sub-pro and pro para rin makafacilitate sa pag-fill up ng plantilla positions dahil yan din yung isang problema ng marami nating applicants sa kasalukuyan. Mr. Chair, mga ilang katanungan na lang. Sa proteksyon ng ating mga kawani at manggagawa, ano ho bang mga konkreto? Una po, meron ho bang datos ang CSC kung ilan ng mga government workers? Ang total na bilang ayon sa nakuha namin datos, umaabot tayo ng 1.6 million. Tama ba? As of 2021, there were 1.68 million, less 178 unfilled positions. We have 1.68 filled positions out of 1.8 million. Ilan ho ba rito ang na-monitor, na-document ba ng CSC? Kung ilan na po sa mga government workers ang tinamaan ng COVID? Ilan ho ba ang kabuuang tinamaan sa burokrasya? Gayon din ang ilan ang naka-recover and ilan ang fatalities based on the COVID? And of course, ang next question, what steps are the CSC doing? What resolutions or measures are being taken to respond to this pandemic that has been afflicting our country and and also obviously our government workers, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Sponsor?
Ayon po sa datos na nakuha po ng CSC mula sa Department of Health, ang mga government health workers na nagkaroon po ng COVID o yung mga confirmed COVID-19 cases, ang total po ay umaabot ng 3,601 at pagdating naman sa iba pang mga government employees na meron pong confirmed COVID-19 cases, umaabot po ang bilang sa 2,068. So ito po ay datos na galing po sa Department of Health, pero siguro mas maganda po na ito ay ma-validate din natin kasi marami pong nagbabago mula po sa iba't ibang mga datos na lumalabas po mula sa Department of Health.
Salamat po, Mr. Sponsor. Salamat po, Mr. Speaker. Napakahalaga na meron tayong concrete na ma-address yung problema ng ating government workers lalo sa panahon ng pandemya. Ngunit medyo hindi nakanais-nais yung lumabas na circular, National Budget Circular, kamakailan lamang ng DBM na naglilinaw na yung mga positions daw na hindi na essentials, bunga ng cost-cutting measures para sa pag-address ng problema ng COVID, ay ang unang tatamaan ay yung mga hindi regular na empleyado. Nais rin ang kinataong ito na sana sa halip na magtanggalan tayo sa government ng mga contractuals at government employees, yung non-essentials, ay dapat nga nandun tayo sa tack ng job preservation. Na dapat tayo nga ang magsilbing uliran ng government should serve as a model in ensuring that workers, although possibly hindi nga ito immediate na kailangan, maaari silang hanapan ng mga iba't ibang uri ng trabaho para na preserve natin yung trabaho nila habang may pandemya at dapat nga ang direksyon ay patungong regularization. Kaya Mr. Chair, salamat po doon sa nabanggit nyo dahil nakakabahala na talaga yung sitwasyon na dumadami ang bilang, and I hope na makakuha tayo ng accurate data because we were able to get some information from the press release of the Philippine PNA. However, it was hindi makuha yung accuracy ng number nito. Nevertheless, we hope that this also be one of the main tasks of the civil service on how to provide the necessary protection for our government workers. So maraming salamat po sa inputs na ito dahil napakahalaga na lalo na sa usapin ng contractualization, yung COVID response for government workers, and other very important concerns ng ating mga manggagawa ay mabigyan ng kaukulang hakbang ng gobyerno para sa kanilang kapakanan at kagalingan. Maraming salamat, Mr. Chair. Maraming salamat, Mr. Speaker, at sa lahat ng kasamahan natin sa Kongreso.
Mr. Speaker, gusto ko lang po idagdag na sang-ayon po ang kinatawang ito sa dagdag na proteksyon para sa ating mga manggagawa, lalo na po sa pamahalaan. At pagdating naman po sa mga ginawa ng CSC, marami po silang mga resolusyon na ipinasa upang matulungan ang ating pong mga manggagawa. Ang ilan po dito, ang resolution number 20000522. Ito po yung revised guidelines on the use of leave credits for absence due to quarantine and or treatment in relation to COVID-19 pandemic. Nandito rin yung resolution 20000540. Revised interim guidelines for alternative work arrangement and support mechanisms for workers in government during the period of state of national emergency due to the COVID-19 pandemic, at ang CSC resolution number 20000659, interim guidelines on appointments and other human resource action for the period of the state of calamity due to COVID-19 pandemic. At marami pa hong iba, Mr. Speaker.
With the indulgence of the distinguished gentleman, due to time constraints, the Chair would like to remind the members to strictly observe our time limits. And the Chair would like to request the distinguished colleague, our distinguished colleague from Bayan Muna Party List, to please wind up so that we could give chance also to other members to air their budgetary views. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, yun na po yung aking huling katanungan. Salamat po, Mr. Sponsor. Salamat, Mr. Speaker, sa pagkakataon ito. At sa ating bagong pamunuan sa Kongreso, ang bayan muna ay handa na makipagtulugan, lalo na sa usapin ng ating legislative measures, lalo na sa panahon ng pandemic. Maraming salamat sa inyo lahat.
Kami po ay nagpapasalamat sa ating kagalang-galang na representante ng Bayan Muna Party List, the Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Speaker, may I now recognize the Honorable Dante Marcoleta of Sagip Party List for his interpellation. So move, Mr. Speaker.
The distinguished Deputy Speaker from Sagip Party List is hereby recognized. Please proceed.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Sponsor, thank you for the privilege of being able to clarify a few things from the CSC. You know, Mr. Speaker and Mr. Sponsor, the previous hearing in PhilHealth was quite revealing with respect to the Civil Service Commission, because the hearings were able to prove that the Civil Service Commission bestowed exemplary awards to PhilHealth's IT people and those manning its database. If the grant of awards, Mr. Speaker, Your Honor, were proper and I would say, meritorious. Why is it that the then PCEO admitted that the root of corruption in PhilHealth was due to the fragmented database and deficient IT infrastructure? Will the sponsor care to answer, Mr. Speaker?
Maaari pong malaman, Mr. Speaker, ano po muli yung katanungan? Mr. Speaker, maaari pong malaman sa ating Deputy Speaker, Marcoleta, kung ito po ba yung sinabi ni Ernesto Rivera, 2015 CSC Pag-asa Awardee na isang taga Information Technology and Management Department ng PhilHealth na may posisyong Information Officer 2.
That's probably correct, Mr. Speaker, Your Honor, because this representation is not familiar with the details. It was only upon the admission during the hearings that this representation came to know that certain exemplary awards were given. And the question if these awards are really necessary and meritorious, why would the previous PCAO PhilHealth will admit that the root of corruption itself is the deficient IT infrastructure and the fragmented database, which means, Mr. Speaker, this is inconsistent with the admission of the then President and CEO of PhilHealth. Meaning to say, Mr. Speaker, Your Honor, the awards are not supposed to have been given. Is it not correct?
Mr. Speaker, hindi lang po ang CSC ang kasama sa nagbibigay ng award na ito. Kasama rin po ang iba't ibang mga ahensya at meron po itong criteria kung saan masusing pinag-aaralan kung ang isang empleyado ay karapat-dapat mabigyan ng award. Maari po, Mr. Speaker, na bukod sa mga innovation, bukod po sa mga mahusay na programa na ginawa ng isang awardee, meron pa hong malamang problema ang ahensya ng PhilHealth, kaya po nasabi na meron pong mga kakulangan pagdating sa datos, pagdating ho sa information system. Maari po yan kakulangan sa pondo, sa budget. Maari po yan kakulangan din sa suporta ng iba't iba pong mga opisina within PhilHealth. Kaya hindi ho na i-implement o kaya hindi man na naiayos ang mga sistema na maaaring makatulong para po sa maayos na datos na mahalaga, lalo na sa isang ahensya katulad ng PhilHealth. So ang sinasabi ko lang po, Mr. Speaker, hindi naman po siguro ibig sabihin na merong kakulangan ang isang organisasyon, ang isang opisina, wala nang mga empleyado na nagpapakita ng tanging husay, tanging talino at galing upang makilala ng Civil Service Commission at ito nga bilang isang pag-asa awardee. So maari pong maraming ibang mga dahilan kung bakit hindi perpekto ang sistema ng PhilHealth, ngunit hindi siguro natin may aalis yung accomplishment ng ilang pong mga empleyado ng PhilHealth, kaya po sila nabigyan ng ganito pong national award, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, ang sagot po ay puro assumptions lamang. Samantalang ang itinatanong ng kinatawang ito ay definite na tumutukoy sa pinakaugat ng corruption sa PhilHealth. Ang gusto lang nating ipaintinding mabuti, Mr. Speaker, kung saan pa yung pinagmumulan ng corruption, doon pa nagkaroon ng award. Sana man lang pag-isipang mabuti sapagkat meron pa akong may papakita sa inyong mga ebidensya, Mr. Speaker, Your Honor, na ang nangyayari mismong Constitutional Commission na dapat ito ang nag-uphold ng excellence in public service, sila pa yung nagiging daan para bumaba ang standards ng public service. Halimbawa po, ang PhilHealth po, sa kanilang pakiusap na i-lower ang standards ng kanilang mga salary grade 24 employees, pumayag kagad. Ang pinakamatinding halimbawa, Mr. Speaker, yun pong posisyon ng Executive Vice President, COO, na kung saan kailangan yung civil service eligibility at saka yung master's degree, nang dahil lamang sa pakiusap ng PCEO ng PhilHealth, pumayag kagad ang CSC na ibaba yung standards. Kung tutuusin, Mr. Speaker, kaya natin itinataas ang standards ng public service para sa ganon makita natin na ang isang empleyado o opisyal ng gobyerno talagang nakatutugon sa pangangailangan ng pamahalaan. Kaya po nandiyan ang Civil Service Commission para i-uphold yung quality, yung standard, yung pamantayan ng isang mabuting tagapaglingkod ng pamahalaan. Bakit naman pinipilit nilang ibaba? Sa posisyon po ng Senior Vice President o Executive Vice President, COO, tailor fit po ito para dun sa kanilang kinuhang Vice President o COO. Bakit po ganun, Mr. Speaker, Your Honor? Hindi ba dapat, Mr. Speaker, Your Honor, dahil kayo ang tagapagbantay ng standard o pamantayan ng paggawa ng kalidad ng employment sa pamahalaan, kayo dapat magbantay. Hindi po dapat nakikitaan ang Civil Service Commission nang dahil lamang sa pakiusapan, ibinababa ang qualification. Tama po ba yun, Mr. Speaker, Your Honor?
Mr. Speaker, ayon po sa Civil Service Commission, meron naman pong mga seksyon o pamaraan para po ma-exempt ang isang empleyado upang makuha ang isa pong posisyon. Ito po yung Section 52 ng RA number 1080. At kung maaari po, babasahin ko. Eligibles shall be exempt from the master's degree requirement for division chief and executive managerial positions, the duties and responsibilities of which involve practice or profession or belong to the same occupational group or functionally related positions as that of the professions regulated by bar or board laws. At dito ho sa binabanggit ng ating pong Deputy Speaker Marcoleta, ito pong naging desisyon ng CSE ay desisyon coming from the NBank. So kaya po pinag-aralan po mabuti at kaya po ni-resolve nila na ito pong qualification standards shall be the basis of Civil Service Commission in attesting appointments and in evaluating other human resource actions of subject position in the PhilHealth Insurance Corporation. So NBank po, Mr. Speaker, ang nag-decide dito po sa request ng PhilHealth.
Mr. Speaker, napakaganda kasi ang ibinibigay na pangangatwiran sa inyo ng CSC. Ang pinag-uusapan lang naman po, particular kong sinasabi sa iyo, yung posisyon ng Executive Vice President, COO ng PhilHealth, na yon ay tailor-fit para sa kanya. Ang totoo po nun, nung maibaba lahat ang mga standards, wala na po silang kinuhang iba pang applicants. Pagkatapos na pumayag ang Civil Service Commission na maibaba at hindi na hinahanapan ng eligibility si Mr. De Jesus, wala na po siyang master's degree na kinakailangan doon. Pagkatapos na ibaba yung resolution ng CSC adopting minimum standards of qualification, wala na pong in-entertain na mga ibang applicants. Si Mr. Arnel De Jesus na po ang kinuha ng PhilHealth. Ano po ngayon ang nangyari sa PhilHealth? Sir Speaker, ganito po yung sinasabi natin. Dapat po ang CSC ang panindiganan yung qualifications na itinatadhana talaga ng mga rules ninyo. Kahit kailan, kahit ano pang sabihin ninyong katwiran o pangangatwiran para lang palusutin ninyo ang isang taong gustong-gusto ninyong ilagay, nangyayari po yun eh. Mr. Speaker, PhilHealth na naman, isang abogado na 6 na taon pa lamang sa pagiging abogado without any litigation experience, nang dahil siya napapunta sa maraming posisyon sa PhilHealth, napagkamalan na napakarami niyang experience, ginawa kaagad Senior Vice President for the Legal Sector. Ano po nangyari sa PhilHealth? Ito pong abogadong ito, kahit siya ay inutusan mag-file ng maraming administrative and criminal cases against all HICs na nagkaroon at nakitaan ng pagkukulang, ni isa wala siyang asunto na i-file sa mga korte. Ganito po ang nangyayari kapag ang mismong Constitutional Commission na may tungkulin na bantayan ang mga public servants, patawan ng kaukulang parusa kung kailangan, ilahad ang mga qualification na kailangan, paigtingin ang mga requirements, hindi po ganun ang nangyayari. Lalo nilang binababa. I will not belabor that, Mr. Speaker. Ang isa pang nakakasama ng loob dito, nung nagko-conduct po tayo ng hearing dito sa PhilHealth, ang mismong chairperson nila ang nagbigay ng kautusan na huwag magbigay ng impormasyon, anumang impormasyon sa lahat at kahit kanino, kahit nasa Kongreso pa, in aid of legislation. At ito po, Mr. Speaker, ay napatunayan sa pamagitan ng isang video na ipinalabas dito, kitang-kita nating lahat, at pinatunayan din ng minutes of the meeting na ibinigay sa kinatawang ito. Bakit po ganun, Mr. Speaker, Your Honor? Nakikita ko sa napakaraming mga ebidensya na sinasabi ko sa inyo ngayon, ang Civil Service Commission, sa pamamagitan ng kanyang pinakatagapangulo, yung pinaka-chairperson nila, sila pa ang nagiging sanhi para ibaba ang kalidad ng pagsiserbisyo ng mga kawani ng pamahalaan. At kung magkakaroon ka naman ng hearing, hindi sila makikipag-cooperate. Kabaligtaran po sa hinihingi kung bakit na-establish ang isang komisyon na katulad ng CSC, Mr. Chair. Ang tanong po, bakit po ganon? Ano na naman pong katwiran ang sasabihin nila ngayon? Nasa akin po yung mga ebidensya, nakita na po natin, mismong sinabi na ng chairperson, huwag bibigyan ng kahit anong impormasyon ang sino man at kung sino ang ihingi kahit na in aid of legislation. Ang minutes po nasa akin, ang video na pinalabas dito, nakita po ng karamihan. Ang tanong po, Mr. Chair, Mr. Speaker, nandito sila ngayon humihingi ng budget, pagtibayin ang kanilang budget. Pero ang nakikita natin, ang katungkulan, ang mandatong ibinigay sa kanila, kabaligtaran naman ang ating nakikita. Meron po bang mabuting katwiran ang ibinubulong sa inyo, Mr. Speaker, Your Honor?
Una-una, Mr. Speaker, siguro bago ko sagutin yung pangalawang tanong, gusto ko lang po ilinaw dun sa naunang nabanggit ng ating pong mahusay na Deputy Speaker tungkol ho sa mga posisyon na minsan nga nagkakaroon po ng exemption. So gusto ko lang po ipaalala na ang CSC, ang mandato nito is to formulate policies and regulations for the administration, maintenance, and implementation of position classification and compensation, and set standards for the establishment, allocation, reallocation of pay scales, classes, and positions.
Mr.
So, yung
Speaker,
nabanggit
Your
po-
Honor, alam na po natin lahat yan.
Tama
Hindi
po.
po yan ang tinatanong ng kinatawang ito.
Mr. Speaker, papunta na
Ang
ho
tinatanong
dun
po
sa
ng
tinatanong.
kinatawan na ito, bakit po sa dami ng mga requirements na yan, mga policies, mga rules na ini-establish, bakit sila pa mismo ang ibinababa nila ang sariling mga requirements, ang sariling rules para sa mga manggagawang pamahalaan na dapat sana ay binabantayan pati yung uri, yung kalidad, yung competence sapagkat public service is a public trust. Mr. Speaker, Your Honor.
Para ho sa kaalaman ng lahat, Mr. Speaker, katulad na lang nung nabanggit na Senior Vice President position, lahat po yan ay generic. No? So pati ho ang GCG ay hindi po in-identify yung specific Senior Vice President assignment. So hindi rin po ang CSC, hindi rin po alam ng CSC kung sino-sino po yung mga aplikante pagdating ho sa mga posisyon na yan. So nasa ahensya, nasa opisina na nag-a-appoint ang desisyon kung sino po yung mga aplikante at kung sino po yung pipiliin nila. Ang ginagawa lamang po ng CSC ayon na rin sa isinumite o request sa kanila ng iba't ibang ahensya ay tignan kung ito po ay ayon sa mga polisiya, sa mga batas upang po maibigay dun sa mga ahensya yung mga nararapat o yung mga kailangan nila na mga posisyon. Sa huli, Mr. Speaker, yung mga ahensya mismo ang nakakaalam kung ano po yung mga posisyon, kung ano po yung mga qualification na kinakailangan nila at ang CSE po ay nandyan upang siguraduhin na ito po ay sumusunod sa lahat po ng ating civil service laws, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Sponsor, gusto ko sanang maniwala doon sa inyong kasagutan. Pero sa totoo lang, hindi po totoo yung kanilang sinasabi sa inyo. Ito pong Senior Vice President, COO ng PhilHealth. 2 sulat po ang ginawa ni General Morales sa CSC. Binanggit ang kailangan, ang sabi niya, ang Senior Vice President COO, ito po kanya ay napaka-importante, very crucial na posisyon. Sapagkat kung tutuusin, siya po ay pangalawa na sa President and Senior and CEO. Dalawang magkasunod na sulat. Nang dahil doon, alam po ng CSC kung gaano ka-importante yung sulat na yon. At hinihingi, sa pamamagitan ng mga sulat na yon, i-waive na sana yung ibang mga requirements para maipasok nila yung tao na gustong-gusto nilang ipasok sa posisyon na yon. Kaya po nung maibaba yung mga minimum qualification standards, sinino ba ng CSC kung ilang applicants ang in-entertain ng PhilHealth? Hindi po. Sapagkat wala na pong in-entertain na applicant, isa lang po ang kinuha nila. Yun nga po ay si Ginoong Arnel de Jesus. Ganyan po ang nangyayari sa PhilHealth. Mr. Speaker, Your Honor, ito pa po na ang isang masasabi nating, ewan ko po kung matatanggap ninyo itong pangyayaring ito. Ang kinatawang ito po, ang nag-initiate po para ang isang principal ng DepEd sa Tarlac ay mausisa, maimbestiga ng DepEd. Sapagkat siya po ay gumawa ng isang bagay na hindi dapat gawin ng isang guro. Panahon po ng eleksyon, nangalap po siya ng pondo, kumuha po ng pondo sa isang politiko sa Tarlac para raw may pantusto sa isang batang hindi makakatapos ng grade 6. In-expel po ng DepEd yun sa salang grave misconduct. Nag-appeal po yung principal. Ang ginawa ng CSC, ni-reverse po niya yung grave misconduct at ginawa po niyang simple misconduct. Unang tanong po, Mr. Speaker, Your Honor, simple misconduct po ba para sa isang principal? Principal po, hindi pangkaraniwang guro. Principal, panahon po ng eleksyon. Siya ang mag-i-initiate ng programa para mangilak ng pondo para may pantustos ng isang batang mag-aaral. Tama po ba yun? Mr. Speaker, Your Honor.
Mr. Speaker, ayon po sa CSC, ito pong partikular na kaso na binabanggit po ni Deputy Speaker Marcoleta, kaya po na downgrade ang penalty. Ito pong kadahilanan, cases submitted to the jurisdiction of the NBank is in the exercise of its affiliate jurisdiction. Thus, it opens up the case for complete review, which may necessarily result to the imposition of a lesser penalty or a higher one, as the case may be. Cases with CSC are administrative in nature, which are not bound by the technical rules applied to court proceedings.
English po kasi yun, medyo mahirap intindihin siguro, Mr. Speaker, Your Honor. Ang tinatanong ko lamang po, simple misconduct po ba na itinuturing ng Civil Service Commission? Isang principal, panahon po ng eleksyon, manghihingi ng pera sa kandidato para ipantustos kunwari sa isang batang walang may bayad para makatapos ng grade 6 daw. Yun lang po yung tanong. Napakasimple, Mr. Speaker. Simple misconduct ba yun? Ang DepEd po, in-expel yung teacher, in-expel yung principal. Ang tinatanong ko po, ni-reverse ng CSC, ibig bang sabihin, yung ginawa na yun ng principal, simple misconduct?
Mr. Speaker, sa dami po ng kaso na umaabot po sa CSC, maaari po yung mga detalye ay hindi na ho nila kabisado, no, sa lahat ho ng mga kaso, sapagkat ang ina-appreciate ng Civil Service Commission ay yung mga submissions na umabot po sa kanila. At doon din ho sila bumabase, Mr. Speaker, sa kung ang mga kaso ay magkakaroon po ng higher or lower imposition of a penalty, Mr. Speaker.
Ako naman po, Mr. Speaker, Your Honor, madali naman po akong kausapin eh. Madali rin po akong makaintindi. Sana po hindi na ganyan yung mga ibinubulong na sagot sa inyo. Ang tinatanong ko lamang po, sa CSC po ba, simple misconduct lang yung gagawin ng isang principal, manghihingi ng pera sa kandidato, panahon po ng eleksyon, yun po ba'y simple misconduct? Oo, hindi lang po ang sagot, Mr. Speaker, Your Honor.
Kung proven po, Mr. Speaker, sang-ayon po ang kinatawan na to na
yung po ba'y simple misconduct? Sa tingin po ba ng CSC, isang simpleng misconduct lamang yon?
Kung proven po, Mr. Speaker, katulad po ng binanggit ko kanina, hindi po siya simple.
Ayun po, yun lang po yung tinatanong ko eh. Ang ginawa nila, ni-reverse po nila yung desisyon ng Department of Education, kaya yung teacher, yung principal, nandun na naman po. Kaya gagayahin po yan ng maraming teachers din siguro, kahit panahon ng eleksyon, po pwede pala na kumuha ng pera sa mga kandidato. Ganyan po kasi ang sinasabi ko kung bakit ganito ang patakaran ng CSC. Ngayon po, Mr. Speaker, Your Honor, ang kinatawang ito, sapagkat mabigat sa loob ko yung ginawa nila, nakiusap ako na mag-file ako ng motion for reconsideration. Sapagkat sa totoo lang, kausap ko yung abogado ng DepEd na dapat mag-file sila ng motion for reconsideration. Ito, taong gobyerno naman po, abogado ng DepEd, sabi po niya, hinihintay niya lamang na matanggap niya yung decision ng CSC at magpapile daw siya ng motion for reconsideration. Ang nangyari po ganito, hinayaan po niyang mag-lapse yung period within which to file a motion for reconsideration. Sapagkat may sabuatan na naman sa pagitan ng Civil Service Commission at saka ng DepEd. Siguro po, gusto nilang ibalik talaga yung principal na yon. Baka naman mahalaga sa kanila yon. Baka naman importanteng tao sa kanila yon. So, hindi nakapag-file ng MR. Yung tamad at sinungaling na abogado ng DepEd. Nakiusap ako sa chairperson ng CSC, panahon din po ng budget hearing, katulad dito. Sabi ko, Madam, payagan mo ako na lang mag-file ng MR. Sa totoo naman, makikita mo sa mga dokumento ng kaso na yan, ako ang nagpasimuno nito panahon pa ni Brother Armin Luistro na siya yung kalihim ng Department of Education ng panahon na yon. Ano pong nangyari sa motion for reconsideration ko, Mr. Speaker, Your Honor? Denied. Alam po ba ninyo kung ano ang ginawa nilang ground? Wala raw po akong personalidad. Mr. Speaker, Your Honor. Baka hindi mo ako kasing gandang lalaki, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Sponsor. Ang kinatawang ito bilang kumakatawan sa mga constituents sa Tarlac na imbierna, na intriga sa ganong klaseng pagdidesisyon. Wala po akong personalidad, Mr. Speaker, Your Honor. Bakit? Ang ginawa nila, ikinumpara nila ako sa karaniwang litigant na sa inyong mga pinagbasihang mga jurisprudence ay hindi naman members ng Congress. Tama po ba yung ginawa nila, Mr. Speaker, Your Honor?
Mr. Speaker, naintindihan ko po yung frustration ng ating pong Deputy Speaker Marcoleta. Ngunit ayon po sa Civil Service Commission ay sinusunod lang rin po nila yung kanila pong mga polisiya pagdating po sa mga ganitong klaseng kaso na hindi po basta maaari mag-MR ang isa pong kinatawan o isa pong tao na maaring hindi naman adversely affected by the case. No? So yun po yung polisiya na binabanggit, Mr. Speaker. Pero naintindihan ko po na dahil nga sa hindi pag-aksyon ng DepEd, dun po inabot ito pong kasong nababanggit ni Deputy Speaker Marcoleta.
Yun po yung katwiran, Mr. Speaker. Hindi raw ako adversely affected. Bilang kinatawan po, kami po party list eh. Kami po nationwide. Ang constituencies po namin laganap sa buong Pilipinas. Pagkatapos tatanggalin mo ako ng personalidad para ilaban, ipamanhik, ipagsumamo sa inyo ang kalagayan po ng eskwela at saka ng mga teachers na naperwisyo sa ginawa ng principal na yon. Walang personalidad ang kinatawang ito. Ganun po ba ang tingin ng Civil Service Commission?
Mr. Speaker, hindi lang po ang civil service ang meron pong ganung mga polisiya. Sa katunayan, at sigurado po alam po ito ni Deputy Speaker Marcoleta, na marami pong mga president. No? Meron na rin pong Supreme Court decision kung saan kapag yung complainant is not the party adversely affected, lumalabas. No? Wala pong legal personality to interpose or to appeal. So hindi lang po yan simpleng desisyon na ginawa ng en-banc ng Civil Service Commission, kundi po yan po ay ayon na rin sa mga ibang kaso na dininig at dinesisyonan ng ating Supreme Court, Mr. Speaker.
Kahit ano pong ikatwiran nila, Mr. Speaker, Your Honor, yung mga binanggit po nilang mga jurisprudence at mga kaso, hindi kaparehas nitong sinasabi ko sa inyo. Huwag na silang magtago, Mr. Speaker, sa pangangatwiran na pabaluktot at hindi naman nakasalig doon sa mismong mga facts ng kasong ito. Mr. Speaker, yung po bang pondo para bayaran yung mga job orders, hindi po ba nanggagaling sa MOOE?
Tama
Civil
po,
Service.
Mr. Speaker.
So tama po ba na tinatrato ang mga job orders ng mga supplies? Walang dignidad. Sapagkat kung ito inilagay mo sa MOOE, katapat lang po ng job orders po, mga supplies. So asan po ang dignidad ng mga manggagawa ng civil service?
Mr. Speaker, hindi ho tama no, na itrato ho natin ng mga supplies ang mga empleyado.
Tama po ba na tratuhing supplies ang mga empleyado?
Hindi ho tama at hindi ho sang-ayon doon ang Civil Service Commission, Mr. Speaker.
So hindi dapat sa MOOE, di ba?
Di po kaya ho nasa MOE, Mr. Speaker, kasi ilan po yan, marami pong mga batas, katulad po ng ating General Appropriations Act, na ang mga job order ay nasa, o ang kanila pong tinatanggap ay nandun po sa MOE. Ngunit hindi naman siguro ibig sabihin na sila po ay tinatrato bilang mga supplies, Mr. Speaker.
Ganun na rin yun, Mr. Speaker, Your Honor.
With the indulgence of the two gentlemen, the chair would like to remind members of their time limit so that we could also allow the other members to also interpolate the sponsors. The distinguished Deputy Speaker may please wind up with his interpellation.
Salamat po, Mr. Speaker.
Please proceed.
Sa dami po kasi nito, papayag po ba ang Civil Service Commission kung ibigay ko na lamang itong written recommendations ko sa inyo para sa ganon, lahat po ng mga concerns ng kinatawan na ito na makakatulong sa inyo para baguhin ang mga patakaran na sa aking palagay ay hindi po nakatutugon sa hinahanap sa inyo bilang isang constitutional commission. Kung papayag kayo para matapos na ako, ibibigay ko itong mga ilang rekomendasyon o suggestion na alam ko pong makatutulong sa inyo para ibangon ang Civil Service Commission. Papayag po ba kayo, Mr. Speaker, Your Honor?
Opo, Mr. Speaker, napakalaking tulong sa Civil Service Commission na madinig at mabasa ang mga mungkahi ng ating pong Deputy Speaker Marcoleta upang lalo pa hong ma-improve ang pagpapatakbo ng ating Civil Service Commission.
So, hindi lang po, huwag niyo lamang pong ipangako, Mr. Speaker, kailangan merong commitment ang Civil Service Commission na ito pong mga suggestions na ito ay inyong pag-aaralang mabuti para makatulong po sa inyo.
Mr. Speaker, meron pong matamis na oo ang Civil Service Commission upang pag-aralan mabuti ang mungkahi ni Deputy Speaker Marcoleta. At dahil, Mr. Speaker, kapitbahay lang ho natin ang Civil Service Commission, ay sasamahan ko po si Deputy Speaker Marcoleta upang isa-isahin ang kanya pong mga mungkahi at kung sakali po lahat yan ay mapagbigyan at magamit upang lalong gumanda ang takbo ng Civil Service Commission.
With that commitment, Mr. Speaker, Your Honor, pagpapasalamat po ako sa inyo sa panahong ibinigay niyo sa akin. Salamat po, Mr. Sponsor.
Maraming salamat din po, distinguished gentleman and Deputy Speaker from Sagip Party List. The Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move to recognize the Honorable Franz Castro of Party List ACT Teachers for her interpellation.
The Honorable Congresswoman Franz Castro is hereby recognized.
Maraming salamat po, Ginoong Speaker. Magandang hapon po sa ating lahat. At sa pamilya po ng Civil Service at siyempre po sa ating butihing sponsor. Okay, yung una po, Mr. Speaker, so napansin po ng kinatawang ito na yung budget ng Civil Service Commission nabawasan ng almost 38%. 1 billion, 1.032 billion mula sa kanilang proposal na 2.725 billion. So ang mga cuts po, Ginoong Speaker, ay yung General Management and Supervision less than 1.084 billion or 64%. Civil Service Human Resource Governance Program less than 35.225 million or 26%. Public Assistance and Contract Center ng Bayan Operation Services less than 7.7896 billion or 30%. At yung implementation po ng RA 9485, otherwise known as Anti-Red Tape Act of 2007, less than 29.126 million or 43%. So, ang tanong, Mr. Speaker, ano po ba ang magiging implikasyon nito dahil ako po ay nag-worry, lalong-lalo na dito sa implementation ng 9485, RA 9485, ano po ba yung magiging implikasyon nito doon sa serbisyo, operations ng Civil Service Commission. Wala na po sa function nitong Civil Service Commission yung may ilang mga provisions sa RA 9485.
Ang dalawang function po ay yung pagdinig ng mga administrative cases filed at saka yung policy development, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, so wala pong epekto ito doon sa yung pagbabawas ng ng pondo dito sa implementation ng sinasabi ninyong functions.
Ang pinaka-apekto po, Mr. Speaker, ay yung contact center ng bayan. Yun yung number of agents. Yun po yung mababawasan.
Okay, salamat po, Ginoong Speaker. Mayroon pong budget for public sector unionism o yung PSU, promoting and harnessing public sector unionism. 1 million. Ano po ba yung mga sector unionism? Dahil alam po natin na kapag meron pong agreement ang management at ang mga union ng mga public employees or teachers, dito po natin napapag-usapan yung iba't ibang mga benepisyo na hindi ipinagkakaloob ng batas. At dito rin po napapag-usapan, Ginoong Speaker, yung mga policy na pinag-uusapan po ng union at ng management. Kaya po maganda po na palakasin ang mga union ng mga government employees. Naniniwala po ba dito ang ating sponsor, Ginoong Speaker?
Umanino, Mr. Speaker, maaari pong malaman muli yung katanungan.
Mahalaga po, Mr. Speaker, Ginoong Sponsor, na mapalakas natin yung ugnayan ng mga government employees union at mga teachers union sa mga administration. Dahil sa pamamagitan po ng union, umuupo po sa table, umuupo po sa negotiating table ang mga government employees at ang mga management para pag-usapan, halimbawa, yung mga dagdag na mga benepisyo para doon sa ating mga government employees na hindi binibigay ng batas. At syempre kung may mga problema din po among government employees and management, dito rin siya napapag-usapan. So naniniwala po ba kayo yung kahalagahan ng pag-uunyon sa public sector?
Ang Civil Service Commission po ay naniniwala sa kahalagahan ng public sector unions.
Salamat po, Ginoong Sponsor, Ginoong Speaker. Ano po ba yung serbisyo na ginagawa po ng Civil Service Commission para po halimbawa po mapalakas po? Ako po galing po ako sa sa education sector. At naniniwala po ako na talagang dapat na palakasin natin ang mga unyon ng mga guro at saka ng mga non-teaching personnel. Pero po ano po kaya ang ginagawa ng civil service, ginawang sponsor, ginawang speaker doon sa ating mga union, kasi po nakakatanggap ang opisina ko ng kinatawang ito ng mga complaint po sa mga teachers union kaugnay ng relasyon nila sa management sa Department of Education. Ano po kaya ang maitutulong dito ng ating Civil Service Commission?
Meron pong opisina ang CSC, ito pong Human Resource Relations Office na inatasan upang tumulong pagdating po sa public sector unions. At kung sa nabanggit po, ito pong mga problema sa mga ahensya ng ating pamahalaan tungkol po sa mga union, maaari rin po idalin dito ho sa Public Sector Labor Management Council. Maaari pong dinigin ang mga nagiging problema upang makatulong po ang Civil Service Commission.
Salamat po, Ginoong Sponsor, Ginoong Speaker. Kasama po ang ACT teachers na lumaban noon para magkaroon ng mga public sector union sa mga teachers. Ngunit parang nababaliwala naman po ito dahil nawawala na ng pangil ang PSLMC, chaired by the Civil Service, sa pagpapatupad ng mga PSU at iba pang karapatan ng union. Meron po bang halimbawa, regular monitoring ang civil service sa mga union ng mga government employees para kung makikita po nila kung merong mga problemang nagaganap, meron po silang magagawang tulong o ma-extend po nila yung tulong doon sa ating mga union. Kasi naalala ko po, Mr. Speaker, nung panahon po na ako po ang presidente ng union, alam ko po ang Civil Service Commission ay nagko-conduct yan ng mga seminar, PSU, sa mga eskwelahan or sa mga division, sa mga region, kasama ang management. So nagagawa pa rin po ba ito? Kasi may mga problema po tayo ngayon. Sinabi nga lang natin sa ating mga unions, we will extend the all administrative remedy sa mga problema. So ano po bang matutulong dito, Mr. Speaker, Ginoong Sponsor, sa ating mga teachers union?
Ang Civil Service Commission ay patuloy pong hinihingi sa mga ating PSU ang mga iba't iba pong ang mga reports nang sa ganon ay namomonitor po nila ang kalagayan ng ating pong mga union. Dun ho sa katanungan kung tuloy pa rin yung ating ginagawa pong information dissemination, tuloy pa rin po ayon po sa Civil Service Commission, Mr. Speaker.
Po, no, salamat
yung
po.
report po, Mr. Speaker, annual po hinihingi at doon po siguro nakikita ng Civil Service kung meron pong mga maaring matulong o may mga problema sa iba't iba pong union sa public sector.
Meron din po ba, Mr. Speaker, Ginoong Sponsor, magagawa ang civil service sa mga management? Like for example, in the case of the teachers union, ang tinatawag pong management ay yung regional office or yung regional director at saka yung iba pang mga opisyal. So sa ganitong ano po ba yung sa sinasabi niyo nagko-conduct ng monitoring, halimbawa po may mga problema pong dumating sa office ko, halimbawa po yung Region 6. Ito po ay for CNA negotiation. Pero tumagal na po ito ng 1 year o magto 2 years na po, Ginoong Speaker. Hanggang ngayon, yung regional director dito ay hindi pa rin pumapayag na makapag-negotiate sila doon sa collective negotiation agreement, para sa collective negotiation agreement. At kung ano-ano nga na mga requirements ang hinihingi doon sa mga unions. Ganon din po yung Region 11. Renegotiation na po ng collective negotiation agreement Pero ganun din po yung hinihinging mga requirements kung ano-ano. Pwede po bang ma-monitor or mabisita ng civil service itong mga nabanggit kong mga regions para malaman po talaga, Mr. Speaker, ginong sponsor, ang ano ba yung problema para hindi magpatuloy itong mga collective negotiation agreement. Kasi ito po yung peaceful means na kung saan napapag-usapan po dito yung mga, di ba, yung mga benefits, problema ng mga teachers sa kanilang work. So ano po ba yung nakocommit kaya ng civil service kaugnay nito? Babanggitin ko na lang yung mga regions na pwedeng i-monitor. Region 5, Region 6, Region 7, Region 11, and NCR. Baka pwedeng gumawa, at saka CAR, yung CAR pala, CAR. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Meron pong 7 regions na gusto nating ma-monitor at malaman po ang mga problema ng DepEd regions kung bakit hindi hinaharap itong mga registered union naman ito sa CNA negotiation at dun sa ano pa mong problema. Pwede po bang makahingi ng commitment, Ginoong Speaker, Mr. Sponsor, sa Civil Service Commission na sila ay magmamonitor at aalamin ang mga naging problema para magtuloy po yung mga negotiation at mga iba pa pong mga discussion sa collective negotiation agreement. Ginoong Speaker, Ginoong Sponsor.
Kung maaari po, Ginoong Speaker, makuha po ng Civil Service Commission yung mga detalye na nabanggit kanina. Nang sa ganun, ito po ay ma-monitor o maimbestigahan nila at nagko-commit po ang Civil Service na babalitaan po o i-update nila si Congresswoman France para po sa kung ano po yung kanilang findings at ano po yung kanilang recommendation upang makatulong.
Actually po, Ginoong Speaker, Ginoong Sponsor, meron po akong sulat sa, hindi po sa Civil Service, pero sa Department of Education, October 5, pero hindi pa ito sinasagot. On a due time, matatanong ko rin ito sa Department of Education. Pero bibigyan ko po kayo ng copy nung ating communications. Pwede po bang malaman yung timeline kung kailan pwede itong malaman yung report?
Ayon po sa Civil Service, Ginoong Speaker, 1 linggo para po mabigyan po kayo ng update.
Okay, with that assurance, Ginoong Speaker, Mr. Sponsor, ako po ay nagtitiwala doon sa commitment ng Civil Service. Last issue na lang po, Mr. Speaker, Ginoong Sponsor, kaugnay po doon sa mga nireport po sa amin, opisina, ng mga probationary teachers natin. Ano po ba yung role ng civil service dito? Especially po, meron po tayong batas, yung ating Bangsamoro law, organic law. Nakalagay po doon yung sa Bangsamoro Transition Authority. So meron po bang meron po meron po doong section, yung section 10 na kung saan nakalagay po doon yung role ng civil service, lalong-lalo na doon sa human resource audit. Okay? So pwede po bang malaman, Ginoong Speaker, Ginoong Sponsor, kung nag-conduct na po ng human resource audit ang civil service para po malaman natin kung ano po yung mga plantilla, positions na kailangan at mga pwede pang fill-upan at ilan po yung approved na plantilla positions.
Meron pong datos sa Ginoong Speaker, ngunit hindi pa ho siya kompleto at kung gusto po ng ni Congressman Franz na mabigyan siya ng kopya nito pong datos na to, ay po pwede pong maibigay ng Civil Service Commission.
Okay, ang tanong ko po ay, ito po ba yung human resource audit? Nag-conduct na po ba ng human resource audit? Kasi po, ayon po sa batas, dun sa Section 10, nakalagay po dito, babasahin po natin ay medyo mahaba, ano? Pero may nakalagay po dito na dapat ang civil service po ay dapat mag-conduct ng human resource audit bago po makapagkaroon ng approval ng mga plantilla positions at ilan po yung dapat ma-fill upan at ilan po yung mga kailangan.
Ayon po sa Civil Service, Ginoong Speaker, hindi pa ho ginagawa ito pong human resource audit dahil hindi pa ho na-fill upan yung mga posisyon. So hindi pa ho sila nakakasagawa nito pong human resource audit.
Pwede po bang malaman, baka hindi po ba remiss sa function ang civil service dito dahil alam naman natin yung pong Bangsamoro Organic Law ay 2 o 3 taon na pong naaprubahan.
Ginoong Speaker, nasa transition pa ho kasi ngayon, kasalukuyan. Kaya po baka hindi pa napapanahon yung paggawa ng human resource audit ayon po sa Civil Service Commission.
Okay,
Nasa transition stage pa ho.
Hanggang kailan po yung transition stage?
Po tayo sigurado, Ginoong Speaker, pagdating ho sa gaano katagal ho yung transition period. Pero ang commitment ng CSE ay makapagsagawa ng initial audit upang maibigay po kay Congresswoman Franz.
Okay, salamat po. So malinaw po na wala pa tayong kinakandak na human resource audit. Siguro, meron po ba tayong mga report about doon sa mga teachers na probationary? Ito po yung mga teachers natin sa Bangsamoro na 10 years hanggang 30 years sila na nasa service. Pero meron pong memo na natanggal po sila. Ano po ba yung pwedeng maitulong kaya ng ating civil service kaugnay po dito sa ating mga teachers na to? Ano po to, Mr. Speaker, less than 1,000 na mga teachers po natin?
Ginoong Speaker, nung nagkaroon po nung batas, yung BARM, ay lahat po naapektuhan. Kahit maiksi pa lang yung serbisyo o kaya mahaba. Pero ayon po sa CSE, maaari pong mag-appeal sa kanila pong opisina para makita o malaman kung paano po sila makakatulong.
So, Mr. Speaker, dahil balak ko rin po sanang magkaroon ng panukalang batas dito, kasi yung mga teachers po dito ay, though matagal na po sila sa serbisyo, mukhang hindi pa sila pumapasa doon sa exam, sa licensure exam. So ano po kaya yung matutulong dito ng civil service sa kanila?
Commit po, Ginoong Speaker, ang Civil Service Commission sa measure o legislation na ipopropose po ng ating kinatawan mula po sa ACT Teachers Party List at umasa po tayo na ito po ay susuportahan ng Civil Service Commission.
Salamat po, Mr. Speaker, Ginoong Sponsor, dahil tinitignan po natin yung kahalagahan nitong mga guro na ito na talagang nagserbisyo na po dun sa ating mga estudyante o sa bayan. Pero pagdating po ng panahon, maraming mga teacher nga dito, sabi nga nila, kung ano na ba, approve na ba yung age 56 na retirement, gusto na sana namin mag-retire. Kaya lang, sinasabi nila na kapag pwede pa silang magserbisyo ay gagawin nila. Kaya yun po, siguro maganda yung pagkakataon na ito na ma-inform yung ating Civil Service Commission through our sponsor na may mga ganito po tayo mga teachers sa BARM na problematic po, lalong-lalo na yung mga probationary, na sana makatulong din yung civil service doon sa kanila.
Mr. Speaker, I move to recognize the Honorable Lawrence Fortun of the 1st District of Agusan del Norte. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
The distinguished representative of Agusan, 1st District of Agusan del Norte is recognized for his interpellation.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. There being no other member of the minority who wants to interpellate on the budget of CSC, I move on behalf of the minority to terminate the interpellation on the budget of the CSC.
Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, on the part of the majority, we join the minority in the motion to terminate the interpellations on the proposed budget of the Civil Service Commission. So move, Mr. Speaker.
There is a joint motion to terminate the interpellation of the budget of the Civil Service Commission. Is there any objection? The chair hears none. The motion is approved. Majority Leader.
Speaker, a few minutes of suspension, Mr. Speaker.
Session suspended.
that the majority and the minority have moved to close deliberation of the proposed budget of the Civil Service Commission and the Career Service Executive Board.
The clarification is duly noted.
Mr. Speaker, we move to open discussion on the proposed budget, the period of sponsorship and debate on the proposed budget of the Commission on Audit. And for this purpose, recognize our sponsor, the Honorable Bingo Matugas. So moved, Mr. Speaker.
There is a motion to open the period of debate and deliberation on the budget of the Commission on Election. Is there any objection? The chair hears none. The motion is approved. The Honorable Matogas is recognized as the distinguished sponsor of the budget on the Commission on Election.
Mr. Speaker, at this juncture, we move to recognize our esteemed Deputy Minority Leader from the 1st District of Iloilo, the Honorable Janet Garin.
Before the chair will recognize the Honorable Garin, the chair would like to welcome the official family of the Commission on Elections who are here present to defend their budget. The
Mr.
Honorable
Speaker,
Garin is recognized
Commission on
for her
Audit.
interpellation.
Mr. Speaker, it's Commission on Audit, not COMELEC. Correction, Mr.
Yeah,
Commission on
sorry.
Audit, Mr. Speaker.
The chair stands corrected because that's what I heard also from the majority leader. I'm sorry. Commission on Audit. Yeah, we just correct ourselves from Commission on Election to Commission on Audit. The Honorable Garin is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of the minority, there being no member who would wish to interpolate insofar as the proposed budget of the Commission on Audit is concerned, we in the minority move to terminate the period of debate and interpellation of the said agency. So moved, Mr. Speaker.
Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the majority, we move to close the period of sponsorship and debate on the proposed budget of the Commission on Audit. So moved, Mr. Speaker.
There is a joint motion to terminate the deliberation on the budget of the Commission on Audit. Is there any objection? The chair hears none. The motion is approved. Okay. The chair would like to congratulate the official family of the Commission on Audit, headed by Chairman Aguinaldo. Congratulations. Majority Leader.
Sir, I move that we recognize. Mr. Speaker, I move that we begin the period of sponsorship and debate on the proposed budget of the DSWD. So move, Mr. Speaker.
There's a motion to open the sponsorship and debate on the Department of Social Welfare and Development, including its attached agencies. Is there any objection? The chair hears none. The motion is approved. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we acknowledge the presence of the DSWD family.
To the official family of the DSWD, welcome to the House of Representatives. Majority Leader.
2 minutes of suspension, Mr. Speaker.
Session suspended. Session resume. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we acknowledge the presence of the Good Secretary Rolando Joselito Bautista, Undersecretary Amy S. Torrefranca, and Glenda D. Relova. So move, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Bautista of the Department of Social Welfare and Development, together with your officials, welcome to the House of Representatives. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we recognize the Honorable Josie Lim Kai Chong to answer questions on the proposed budget of DSWD. So move, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Lim Kai Chong is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, my distinguished colleague, I rise to sponsor the proposed budget of DSWD and its attached agencies for fiscal year 2021. Mr. Speaker, for fiscal year 2021, DSWD proposes a total budget of 171.22 billion pesos, including the operations of its attached and supervised agencies. This cash-based budget is 4.4% higher than the 164.0 billion allocated for the department in 2020. As the incidence of poverty is projected to increase, this representation would like to underscore the social welfare and development concerns that should be among the exigent priorities in the country. As representatives of the people, it is our inherent duty to breathe life into the Constitution's promise of social justice for all. I, therefore, ask your support, my honorable colleagues, in passing a just, equitable, and adequate budget for this department. Let us capacitate our nation's social welfare arm to effectively fulfill its mandate of helping the poor, the vulnerable, and the disadvantaged sector of our society. Mr. Speaker, this representation as Vice Chair of the Committee on Appropriations is now ready to answer questions from our colleagues relative to the budgetary requirement or support of DSWD.
The Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we recognize the Honorable Carlos Isaganiti Zarate of Party List Bayan Muna for his interpellation. So move, Mr. Speaker.
The Chair would like to recognize our distinguished colleague, Representative Zarate, but before that, the Chair would like to suspend the session for a while to pave the way for the oath-taking of the two newly proclaimed party list representatives. Session is okay, it's suspended. Kala ko resume. Yes. Session resume. As the Chair said earlier, we would like to suspend the session for a while to pave the way for the oath-taking of the two newly proclaimed party list representatives.
Mr. Speaker?
Yes, the Majority Floor Leader.
We move to suspend consideration of House Bill 7727. So move, Mr. Speaker.
Is there any objection? There being none, motion is hereby approved. Session is suspended.
Consideration of House Bill 7727, Mr. Speaker.
Any objection? There being none, motion is hereby approved.
With that, Mr. Speaker, we move to suspend session for a few minutes. So move, Mr. Speaker.
Session is suspended for a few minutes.
All party lists to come up the stage. for the swearing in of our fellow party list member. Party list members, please come up the speaker's podium.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
Cardema.
Address.
Of 392 Kingsfield.
Having been elected as
Energize the Republic through the enlightenment of the youth sectoral party list organization. Duterte Youth.
hereby solemnly swear
I will well and faithfully. Hereby solemnly swear.
that I will well and faithfully discharge
I will well and faithfully discharge
to the best of my ability
my ability
my present position of all others
and of all others
I may hereafter hold
I may hereafter hold
under the Republic of the Philippines.
under the Republic of the Philippines.
I will support and defend the Constitution of the Philippines.
I will support and defend the Constitution of the Philippines.
I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same.
That I will bear true faith and allegiance.
And that I will obey the laws,
And that I will obey the laws,
legal orders,
legal orders,
promulgated by the duly constituted authorities of the Republic of the Philippines.
promulgated by the duly constituted.
That I impose this obligation upon myself voluntarily,
That I impose this obligation upon myself voluntarily,
without mental reservation
without mental reservation
or purpose of evasion.
or purpose of evasion.
Help me God.
Pakita mo yung proclamation.
No, of course, of course. I'm assigned muna.
Sumama ka na dito. Sumama ka na.
Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name and address.
I, Rodolfo Rotanes, of 8868 Yungay Street, Barangay Olympia, Makati City, Metro Manila,
Having been elected as
having been elected as
representative of Coalition of Associations of Senior Citizens in the Philippines Incorporated, party list.
as representative Coalition of Associations of Senior Citizens in the Philippines Incorporated, party list.
hereby solemnly swear
hereby solemnly swear
that I will well and faithfully discharge
that I will well and faithfully discharge
to the best of my ability
to the best of my ability
the duties of my present position
the duties of my present position
and of all others I may hereafter hold
and of all others I may hereafter hold
under the Republic of the Philippines,
under the Republic of the Philippines,
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the Philippines,
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the Philippines,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same,
and that I will obey the laws,
and that I will obey the laws,
legal orders,
and
decrees promulgated by the duly constituted authorities of the Republic of the Philippines, that I impose this obligation upon myself voluntarily,
and that I impose this obligation upon myself voluntarily,
without mental reservation or purpose of evasion. So help me God.
So help me God. Thank you. Boss, thank you.
Welcome to the House.
Congratulations. Welcome.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we resume consideration.
Session resumed. The majority floor leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we resume consideration of the proposed budget of the Department of Social Welfare and Development, including its attached agencies. So move, Mr. Speaker.
Is there any objection? Chair hears none. Motion is hereby approved. Please proceed. Majority floor leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we recognize the Honorable Carlos Isagani Zarate of Party List Bayan Muna for his interpellation. So move, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman from Bayan Party List is hereby recognized. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Magandang hapon ho sa ating lahat. Will the good sponsor of the budget of the SWD yield to some questions
Yes,
regarding
Mr.
the budget?
Speaker.
Thank you, Madam Sponsor. Isa lang po yung issue na aking tatalakayin doon po sa social pension. Ano? The budget for social pension for next year, originally, the proposal of the SWD is 24.003 billion. No? target po na bibigyan ito ay 3,789,874 elderly people or senior citizens. But in the 2020 National Expenditure Program, what was reflected is only 23,100,187. So there's a variance of almost 800, more or less 816,000. So, what is, Madam Sponsor, Mr. Speaker, what is the impact of this cutback doon sa proposal ng DSWD? Especially that this budget is not really that big. And our elderly people, under the current law, will only receive 500 pesos a month as social pension. So may we hear a reply from the sponsor, Mr. Speaker?
Mr. Speaker, it is true, and I confirm that social pension for indigent senior citizen for 2021 was cut by 816 million pesos as compared to the proposed budget to service 3.7, more or less, as senior citizen. Number one reason is the cleansing of the database, and around 500 beneficiaries are living also in what we call GIDA areas, or geographically isolated disadvantaged areas. So it's difficult also to quantify the numbers of senior citizens in these particular areas. And the reason for the cut, I'm sure, is also, as we said, the cleansing of the database.
Thank you, Madam Sponsor, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, maybe inquire from the good sponsor, just for the record, ilan na po ba talaga ang ating mga elderly people in terms of population? In terms of population, ilan na po yung ating elderly people as of now? Because you only target 3.7 million. There were reports that more or less there are already 10 million elderly people. Is that a correct estimation, Madam Sponsor, Mr. Speaker?
I'm still checking the exact figure, Mr. Speaker, but definitely it's more than 3.7 million individuals. But we're only targeting those that are so I have the record right now, and actually, under the list, there were 3.8 senior citizens that were listed, no? And so far we have 3.7 as target.
Thank you, Madam Sponsor, Mr. Speaker, but I think that is not an accurate answer because definition of elderly people is that they are those who are 60 years old and above, no? And napakalimitado nga po ang binibigyan natin ng pensyon. Kaya kung sinasabi natin na 3.8 million lang yung elderly people, I think that is very low, no? Kung titingnan natin yung 60 years old and above. Natanong ko po yan dahil sa kasalukuyang batas, napakalimitado ng binibigyan ng pensyon, no? According to existing laws, those who will receive 500 monthly pension under the social pension program of the DSWD are those elderly people or senior citizens who are frail, nanghihina na, sickly, may sakit, or with disability or mayroong kapansanan. So yun lang yung makakatanggap ng 500 pesos. No? So if you are not frail, hindi ka nanghihina, hindi ka rin may sakit at wala kang disability, even if you are a senior citizen, dumami ito, no? Dahil napakalaki ng populasyon ng ating elderly people, Mr. Sponsor, Mr. Speaker. I recall during the previous budget briefing last month, DSWD mentioned that the implication of this is that 92,000 more or less elderly people next year will not receive this pension. Is that a correct estimation, Mother Sponsor, Mr. Speaker? 92,000 elderly people dahil doon sa budget cuts na ginawa ang hindi makakatanggap or they will be considered waitlisted, Mr. Sponsor, Madam Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, you're correct, Honorable Representative Carlo. The decrease in the budget will affect around 91,000 waitlisted senior citizens waiting for the grant.
So, may we inquire from the good sponsor, Mr. Speaker, as the Vice Chair of the Committee on Appropriation, will the good sponsor at the proper time agree to this representation that dapat ibalik yung tinanggal na pondo para sa ating mga elderly people? Only 816,000 from the proposal of the SWD, no, of 24 billion, binawasan ito ng 816,000. So bakit para wala nang waitlisted? No? Madam Sponsor, of course, you are also aware na napakababa na nung 500. When that law was amended in 2010, ang sinabi doon, every 2 years, that 500 pesos should have been reviewed and consequently adjusted, no? But since 2010, we are now in 2020, hindi pa rin na-adjust yung 500 pesos na yan. So, will the good sponsor agree that the need for to adjust, no, or to realign some funds from the 2021 budget para maibalik itong 816,000 more or less, Madam Sponsor?
Mr. Speaker, the department surely want the original proposed budget submitted to DBM to be restored, which is 24 billion 3,178. And of course, it all depends on Congress. If Congress, my dear colleagues, will support and approve the realignment of certain budget for this particular program.
Salamat, Madam Sponsor. Kasi po nakakalungkot, during these past months, sa panahon ng COVID-19 pandemic, during the quarantine, marami pong nagrereklamo mga elderly. They were disqualified from receiving the social amelioration program from the SWD on the sole ground that they are already receiving pension. No? Kaya na-exclude nga sila. Na-exclude na sila doon sa SAP. Then here we are, again, nalilimit, no? Yung matatanggap nila next year. There is a computation, or I read somewhere, Madam Sponsor, na sa totoo lang, ang mga mahihirap na mga elderly people natin or senior citizens ay nasa 6.4 million Filipinos, no? But ang binibigyan natin ng pension for next year is only 3.7 at hindi pa natin dito sa 2021 budget na ito, hindi pa natin buong-buong pinupunduhan, no? So ito dapat ang nagagalak tayo at nabuksang muli ang pagdinig ng budget na ito for 2021 At the proper time, Madam Sponsor, I beg the indulgence of the sponsor, no, na pagsikapan nating maibalik yung nakaltas na budget ng DSWD as far as the funds for the elderly people. No? May we get a reply from the good sponsor?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, of course, I would like to get the support of the legislators, no? For the passage of this 100% coverage of all senior citizens to social pension program.
Thank you, Madam Sponsor. No? Dahil isa ho talaga sa natamaan na sektor during this crisis ay ang ating mga elderly people. No? Of course, we are aware that under IATF guidelines, nahihirapan na our elderly people cannot even engage anymore in gainful activities dahil sa edad nila, no? Kailangan nilang manatili sa bahay. So, dapat i-consider natin yon. Of course, to some, probably 500 is just a minimal amount, but to our elderly people, our senior citizens, ay mabigat na po yon, no? Kung may expand natin, maparami natin ang makatanggap nito. Now, on to my other point, Madam Sponsor, Mr. Speaker, still with the issue of our elderly people. For next year po ba, ano po ang programa ng ating kagawaran na mabigyan ng dagdag pa na ayuda ang ating mga elderly people, no, senior citizens, other than the social pension, considering that itong pandemic, COVID-19 pandemic, ay hindi pa naman matatapos this year. No? And in fact, if you look at our budget, some agencies are providing assistance to other sectors because of the fact na itong COVID-19 pandemic will not be totally wiped out or may solution na for next year. Madam Sponsor, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, with the current situation, especially in response to COVID, I believe the senior citizens can also avail of the AIX, we call the assistance to disadvantaged individuals, especially in times of emergency and in need, like medicines and other contingencies or other needs of senior citizens. So that is one program that they can avail of under the DSWD.
Thank you, Madam Sponsor, Mr. Speaker. Incidentally, Madam Sponsor, meron pa po bang social amelioration program for next year under the budget of the SWD for next year?
Mr. Speaker, can you please...
Incidentally, Madam Sponsor, for 2021, meron pa bang provision for social amelioration program for vulnerable sectors?
Our 2021 budget does not include SAP or the Social Amelioration Program. However, we still have the social pension, and there are also plans for senior citizens which are in the pipeline in collaboration with the newly approved National Senior Citizens Commission. And those who are reaching 100 years old can also avail of their benefits.
Thank you, Madam Sponsor, Mr. Speaker. Just for the record, during the period of quarantine, when the SWD was tasked to provide social amelioration program to vulnerable members of the vulnerable sectors, may I inquire, Madam Sponsor, Mr. Speaker, ilan po ang senior citizens natin na nakatanggap ng social amelioration program under Bayanihan 1?
Mr. Speaker, give me a few minutes to get the information from the department. There were, Mr. Speaker, according to the department, there were 1.404 million senior citizens who were able to avail of the social amelioration.
Thank you, Madam Sponsor, Mr. Speaker. So, may I be clarified, Madam Sponsor, even last year, no, 2019, the department already identified 3.796 million elderly people, no? Kahit na nung nakaraang taon. So may I be clarified why in the distribution of the social amelioration program, only 1.4 million elderly people received such a subsidy or aid from the government during the time when most, if not all, of our elderly people are just like our ordinary citizens, no, vulnerable sectors at that, are quarantined, no source of income, the likes. Madam Sponsor, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, my dear colleague, the SAP was given to families. Unit of assistance for SAP is family. So there were only 1.4 million senior citizens which were considered head of the families.
So the rest?
The social amelioration fund was given to families. So there were 1.4 million head of families that were considered senior citizens.
Thank you, Madam Sponsor. So, ibig sabihin, yung halos 3 milyon, dahil hindi naman sila heads of the families, they're not qualified. So, during the time of quarantine, especially during the first months of nitong quarantine, March, April, May, walang natanggap dahil they are not heads of the families. Tama po ba yung pagkakaintindi ko, Madam Sponsor, Mr. Speaker?
Under the Bayanihan 2, the same thing, this is being considered under Bayanihan 2 to extend assistance to the senior citizens.
Thank you, Madam Sponsors. Yun lang yung ilang kong clarification sa budget. Because we are pressed for time. I just, with the kind indulgence of the good sponsor, I hope that we can restore yung nakaltas na budget sa elderly people. Dahil sabi ko nga, during this time, sila yung isa sa pinaka-vulnerable. And kung ang tanong ay meron bang pwedeng pagkukunan, sa pagbusisi po natin, pag-analyze natin sa 2021 budget, there are really allocations there that can be realigned to the needs of our elderly people. If 816,000, wala nga 1 billion yan. If we can, in this budget, there is, for example, a 19 billion allocated to the National Task Force to End Local Communist Armed Conflict, na hindi naman siya line agency. Why not realign that to the needs of our elderly people? So that yung sinubmit ng DSWD, yung targeted nila na 3.7 million, napakababa na nga. Sabi ko nga kanina, 6 million na yung mga poor elderly people. So, at least itong 3.7 million ay makatanggap ng social pension next year. So, thank you, Madam Sponsor, for the kind time in accommodating our clarificatory.
Honorable Josie, during the committee hearing last September 17, I brought to the attention of the Honorable Secretary Bautista that in my district, specifically Cabanatuan City, the second tranche of the SAP, only 33% or 18,000 beneficiaries out of more than 53,000 had received their funds. During the committee hearing, Secretary Bautista said he would look into the matter, and on October 1, Regional Director Maristela of Region 3 wrote me a letter stating that 91.82% or 53,780 beneficiaries were already released with beneficiary receipt numbers from the FSP, or Financial Service Provider. Upon review of the DSWD report together with the Cabanatuan City Social Welfare Office, I saw the reason for the discrepancy. As far as DSWD was concerned, when they downloaded funds for 55,965 beneficiaries to the FSP on August 10, they deemed the second tranche distributed already, since they had already endorsed and transferred the funds to the FSP. Honorable sponsor, Mr. Speaker, do you agree that this kind of monitoring is incorrect? That the DSWD must follow the funds till it reaches the hands of the beneficiary and not when it is downloaded only to the financial service provider?
Mr. Speaker, an honorable colleague, true, during the briefing, the department claimed that 97% of the beneficiary subsidy has been uploaded with the financial service providers. And the reason for the delay is because of inconsistencies of data, which prevents the beneficiaries from withdrawing their subsidies. So currently, and number two, I think there's also the challenge of the FSPs, no? The capacity of the SSPs to disburse, especially in areas that were geographically isolated and disadvantaged. So, but it's a matter of time, and currently, the department is making its best effort to make sure that all the beneficiaries receive their subsidies.
Mr. Speaker, honorable sponsor, so you agree that the DSWD must continue monitoring where the funds are and not stop after it's been downloaded with the FSP?
Mr. Speaker, honorable colleague, you're correct. Currently, DSWD is monitoring the actual disbursement of cash to the beneficiaries.
Yes, thank you very much for that acknowledgement, because during the committee hearing, the regional director was very insistent that 91% had already been received, when my constituents were very much aware that only 33% of them had received, and so much like over 68% were still waiting. So I hope going forward, the DSWD will make sure that they work closely with the LGU and not only with the FSP. I think in the desire to go digital in the second tranche, they went directly to the FSP thinking that as soon as the funds were downloaded, the FSPs would coordinate directly with the beneficiaries, but this did not happen. And right now, it's already October 13, and there's still 7,000 that are waiting for this second tranche. I fully support the DSWD's budget and hope that all the delays caused by going digital can be fully studied so that it will not happen again in the next, going forward, I mean, and not necessarily for SAPs, but for any program that the DSWD will do using digital platforms. That's all, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much, honorable sponsor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much for raising this concern. And DSWD also would also seek the help of BSP in the monitoring of the financial service provider, and to ensure that cash assistance is properly rolled out to the beneficiaries.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much, honorable sponsor. Good evening.
Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, the next member who wishes to interpolate the sponsor is the gentleman from the 1st District of Cebu City. Sorry, Mr. Speaker. From the party list, Gabriela, the Honorable Arlene Brosas. I move that we recognize the Honorable Brosas.
The Honorable Arlene Brosas, party list Gabriela, is hereby recognized for her interpellation to the distinguished sponsor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Madam Sponsor, ilang katanungan po kaugnay sa DSWD budget.
Mr. Speaker, I'll gladly answer the Honorable Arlene Brosas.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Sponsor, importante pong tanong sa DSWD ng mga kababayan natin. May cash aid ba o social amelioration program sa 2021 national budget? Meron po o wala?
Mr. Speaker, my dear colleague, unfortunately, hindi kasama ang social amelioration funds in the 2021 DSWD budget.
Mr. Speaker, Madam Sponsor, may proposal ba ang DSWD para sa ayuda na hindi in-approve ng DBM?
Mr. Speaker, although SAP is not included in the 2021 budget, but there's an increase in the protection services program of DSWD, which I believe can answer the assistance, the assistance to individual in crisis can be addressed.
Madam Sponsor, I was asking about the proposal of the DSWD, if any, sa ayuda na hindi po in-approve ng DBM.
The AIX, the protection which has increased to 12 billion, is also in line with the item of SAP. So the social amelioration program is inclusive in the protection services.
Mr. Speaker, Madam Sponsor, ang nakalagay po kasi sa total obligations ng 2020 ay mula 2020 hanggang 2021, nag-increase lang ng 4.25%, no? Yung DSWD budget. Ibig sabihin, mula 164 papuntang 170 billion po ba to? Billion? Ang total obligations. At Mr. Speaker, Madam Sponsor, ang 4-piece po, ano po yung nadagdag na budget dito?
Mr. Speaker, my dear colleague, the budget approved in 2021 under the NEP is 113 billion 800 million 569.
That is for the 4-piece.
4-piece
Madam Sponsor.
Yes, only for 4-piece.
Now, Madam Sponsor, may loans for the 4-piece, right? May mga inutang, specifically for the 4-piece.
Mr. Speaker, yes.
Madam Sponsor, ano po yung mga inutang natin para sa 4-piece?
Mr. Speaker, give me a minute to get the record straight. Mr. Speaker, the loan status of the Pantawid Pamilya Pilipino program as of today is $500 million.
Madam Sponsor, hindi ba sa ADB may inutang for 4-piece na 200 million noong April? No, ang sinasabi niyo po bang 500 million ay mula sa World Bank noong May at sa ADB ulit na 500 million noong June?
This is already the total ADB, World Bank and ADB.
Napakarami po nating inutang Madam Sponsor, Mr. Speaker. Now my question ay, may UCT po ba o unconditional cash transfer ba sa susunod na taon? Madam Sponsor, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, Madam colleague, this is the only loan that we will incur so far. And I would like to correct, this $500 million is from ADB. The World Bank has been fully complied with or paid.
So, Madam Sponsor, yung May na inutang sa World Bank, sinasabi niyo po na wala. ADB lang po ang sinasabi ninyo na 500 million. And that was last June.
Sorry. The World Bank loan has been availed off as of today. The $500 million is the balance that we can still avail of from ADB.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Sponsor. I won't belabor the point of the loans. Ang sinasabi lang po natin, napakarami nating inutang. Ang sumunod ko pong tanong doon ay kung may UCT o unconditional cash transfer sa susunod na taon. Meron po ba o wala?
Mr. Speaker, for 2021, there's none. UCT implementation is only until 2020 from the train law.
Madam Sponsor, Mr. Speaker, mga kababayan, ito po yung malinaw. Walang UCT for 2021. Pero tuloy-tuloy ang train law. Zero ang budget sa susunod na taon para sa SAP, Social Amelioration Program at UCT. Kahit nagpapatuloy ang Train 1 at may pandemya at malubhang-malubha ang krisis na kinakaharap natin. Wasak pa rin ang kabuhayan ng milyong-milyong Pilipino, Mr. Speaker. Sa kabilang banda, nakaembudo ang bilyon-bilyong pondo sa mga proyektong infrastruktura na tila wala tayong pandemya. Build pa rin ang kahit kagyat na dapat lamnan ng sikmura ng ating mga kababayan. Dapat budgetan ang programang 10,000 ayuda sa lahat ng walang trabaho at mahihirap na pamilyang Pilipino. Yun po ang pinapanawagan namin, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Sponsor.
Mr. Speaker, recognize that the UCT, or the unconditional cash transfer, under the law, under the train law, is only up to 2020. So if it is the desire of Congress to continue the program, then the law can be extended.
Na makukuha sa susunod na taon. Kaya sinasabi natin na kung ganito, napakaraming mga nangangailangan pa rin na mamamayan natin na mahihirap, kaya nananawagan tayo ng 10,000 ayuda para doon, lalong-lalo na yung mga walang trabaho. Mr. Speaker, Madam Sponsor. Now, let me go to another point, Madam Sponsor, Mr. Speaker. The Department of Social Welfare and Development said last committee budget deliberation that any charges more than 50 pesos shall be refunded by this financial service provider. Ang mga financial service providers ang nakakaalam kung sino-sino na mga beneficiaries ang kinuhanan nila ng cash out fee na sobra sa 50 pesos. Kailangang may i-refund ito sa lalong madaling panahon dahil malaking bagay ito para sa mga beneficiaries. Maaari po bang linawin at gumawa ng public statement ang DSWD kaugnay ng proseso ng pag-refund upang madaling malaman ng mga beneficiaries ang kailangang gawin? Mr. Speaker, Madam Sponsor, naalala ko po nung tinanong ko yon sa budget deliberation, sinagot po tayo, no? I just forgot kung ano yung, sino yung USEC na sumagot. But she said, yun nga po, hindi nag-charge ng more than 50 pesos. Pero sinabi natin, may mga service providers na 250 pesos, aawas pa yun sa kanilang nakuhang social amelioration. Halimbawa, kung kukuha sila ng 8,000, 250 pesos pa ibabayad nila. So sinabi sa atin ng na pwede namang i-refund kung more than 50 pesos ang kinuha.
Yes, Mr. Speaker and dear colleague, if during the budget briefing, it was mentioned by the department that the memorandum of agreement was entered between DSWD and the financial service provider. And the charges, additional charges imposed to beneficiaries were only those who cash it from other centers of FSPs. And the charges are what they call the convenient fees as per approved by BSP. So, yung sinasabi natin na charges exceeding 50 pesos can be refunded by the FSP according to the Central Bank of the Philippines. So it's a continuing, there's a continuing move to refund, or there's a continuing activity in giving out the refund by GCash or through its networks.
So, Madam Sponsor, Mr. Speaker, sinasabi niyo po ba na meron ng effort para i-refund, no? Particularly sa GCash? Kasi ang sinasabi nila sa GCash at saka sa Palawan, 160 to 250 yung inaawas. So, ang gusto lang naman ng mga beneficiaries, kung makukuha nila to, paano sila mari-refund? Ano ang mga paraan na gagawin nila para makuha nila yon? So, na may announcement from DSWD particular.
Mr. Speaker, DSWD raised this issue with Bangko Sentral kasi sila yung naghanap ng mga financial service providers. No? So, currently, they're the ones actually regulating the FSP. So, we will have to refer this to the Bangko Sentral kung paano nila So the answer here is that GCash committed to refund within 3 to 5 working days to be credited to their GCash accounts.
So, Mr. Speaker, Madam Sponsor, ang tanong ko po ay, may public statement ba, parang ganon, para sa process na ma-refund sila dun sa... Kasi halimbawa, kung GCash yung nagbigay, nasa kanila yung listahan, and of course, meron din naman ng DSWD, you can double check it.
So, Mr. Speaker, Madam Colleague,
statement na nagsasabi na makakakuha sila ng kanilang anong tawag dito, sa transaction na mga nangyari sa kanila na nag-over ng 50 pesos, makukuha nila yung kanilang refund. So, yun, thank you, Madam Sponsor.
Mr. Speaker, Madam Colleague, rest assured the department would the department commits to make sure that the info drive is disseminated to the farthest or to all the beneficiaries so that they can avail of the refund from GCash.
Thank you, Madam Sponsor. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sa aking susunod na question, tungkol po ito sa 4Ps. Naguguluhan po yung ating mga 4Ps beneficiaries noong may SAP, noong may Social Amelioration Program. Dahil walang impormasyon kung ano yung breakdown ng amount na pumapasok sa kanila. Halimbawa, sa inilapit sa amin mula sa isang miyembro ng Gabriela po sa Tondo, noong kinompute nila yung kung paano kinompute ang natanggap nila at ang dapat nilang matanggap kung talagang ibinibigay ang SAP, nagkaroon po sa computation nila ng malaking discrepancy. Lumabas po na kulang yung kanilang natatanggap. Mr. Speaker, nung nakaraan po, sinagot ko ito kasi wala po silang any, anong tawag dito, evidence or natatanggap na paraan para ma-double check yung breakdown